he had attended a No Kings protest in California.
No Kings. Yeah.
What did security tell you about what may have been his motives?
The reason you have people like that is you have people doing No Kings. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you.
So we have for you some of the latest updates on this would-be Trump assassin, and we'll tie that directly into the 60 Minutes interview that Trump gave tonight and the exchange that took place there, because let me just put it this way. No matter how much the media attempts to obfuscate, deflect, or deny the true nature of what happened here, if they want to argue, oh, we don't really know the motive yet, even though we pretty clearly do, that the more we learn about this shooter, Cole Allen, the worse it simply looks for Democrats. I don't know. Perhaps there is a reason why Democrats, within minutes of this happening yesterday, before anyone knew what really just went down, were already rushing to call the whole thing fake and staged. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to get ahead of something. Maybe leftists had a strong inclination that after months of celebrating, encouraging, and openly endorsing political violence, that one of their average normie supporters would take that message quite literally into his own hands. Because now that we do have the guy's full social media history, we have his manifesto too as well, by the way, we're not only just confirming the instincts we received yesterday that, yeah, this was like an anti-Trump left-leaning guy, but that it turns out that Cole Allen, the teacher educator guy from California and the Kamala Harris donor of 2024, this is very important, was not some type of hardcore revolutionary communist. He wasn't a big-time Antifa style of guy, or likewise, he wasn't some type of hardcore jihadi Palestinian Iranian liberation guy, right? We're not even talking about necessarily the political fringes of the left here. No, indeed, he was what you could describe, frankly, as the average, normal, median Democrat voter. You know, this is a guy who supported Kamala Harris, watched MSNBC apparently, you know, was attending No Kings rallies, retweeting normal Democrat politicians, etc., etc. And that honestly proves a very important point that we've been making for a long time, which is when we say the left has a political radicalization problem, some people can occasionally look and say, oh, well, look, this crazy far-right schizophrenic guy committed something and therefore that reflects on the right wing. Okay, here's the difference, though, is that, sure, even in the case of a presidential assassination coming from the left, you might suspect that guy to be of some fringe, crazy, out there ideology. But you read his manifesto, you don't detect any degree of schizophrenia or what might immediately ring off as hardcore mental illness. Don't get me wrong. I think the average person who is engaging in this type of stuff or believes this type of stuff is indeed mentally ill. But keep in mind, it's not like this immediately, schizophrenic all over the page style of manifesto. This guy does not appear to be some type of hardcore revolutionary communist figure. He's just a resist lib. He's just a blue sky using normal No Kings Democrat. And indeed, that is the entire point. We've been trying to say for months. When we say the Democrat voter base is radicalized, we're not just talking about Antifa or the Palestine activists. No, we're talking about the normal people who show up to these No Kings rallies. Ask them how they feel, by the way. You can see what happens when any conservative person tries to remotely interview them, how crazy they actually are. But please do understand, this is the normal Democrat voter. And that is the issue that Democrats, if they were remotely honest and not cheering this stuff on, would have to confront, is that there is not much of a huge separation between the hardcore Antifa guys, frankly, and the normal No Kings style Democrat voter base. I think you begin to realize they are by and large the same. And we'll get into some of that here today, guys. But again, full confirmation by now, he was there to assassinate Trump and the administration officials. We're yet to see evidence from the left wing that it was actually staged or fake or a false flag. Not sure, by the way, why in a false flag you would leave the patsy alive so that he can squeal and talk and potentially expose the issue. I'm not sure what's going on there. Not exactly sure, too, by the way, why you would choose a patsy who was working in the education system, has a social media background, like people know this guy, they're familiar, he's had a lot of interactions. You think to pull out someone that no one's ever seen before? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. These people are not exactly the best and brightest. But again, I think the reason why they're in such a desperate attempt or a desperate mood to figure out why this is a conspiracy or deflect from it is because indeed they don't want people talking about the actual reality of this situation. So let's talk about it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And let's start with the social media history. So you can see here from Cole Allen, again, sharing very normal mainline type of Democrat stuff. You have on one hand, Jen Rubin retweeting a post here where Jen Rubin compares Trump to Hitler, right? Like typical MSNBC slop. We're not dealing with any political radicals here, He further shares posts from AOC. You could say, oh, AOC is kind of far left. Okay, but still within the Democrat Party. Frankly, mainstream in the Democrat Party these days, but that's where it doesn't stop. J.B. Pritzker, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Whitehouse, criticizing Trump and calling him a liar, right? So you can see, this is his past type of behavior. Let's not forget, he donated and supported Kamala Harris. He further went on to say, like many blue sky resist libs did before, that Trump had staged the Butler assassination attempt. He repeated that blue sky conspiracy that Starlink stole the 2024 election. So, this is a prime example, frankly, of how liberal election denial by the Democrat Party can lead to violence. I don't know, I'm just saying. But let's not forget, again, that is the type of nonsense that didn't come from some dark web of revolutionary communists in Portland. It was started on blue sky. Right? And I'm just going to keep on going to that point. This guy was not what you might call fringe. He was not out there. He literally, you look at his history, you look at the things he said, he's just your normal Democrat voter. He doesn't sound that much distinguishable. And this is the point that really needs to be raised here. Further, he was reposting the Lincoln Project. Oh, notoriously far left organization there too, right? No, just an average Democrat NGO, right? It's closely associated with establishment Democrat politicians. Was fear-mongering about COVID vaccines and stuff like that, and it goes on and on. Here you have him reacting to the Jay Ann Selzer poll. Anyone remember that back in 2024? Predicting that Kamala would win all the swing states. As Reddit Lies here points out, what's so critical about Cole is that he was normal. At least normal in the sense of how he's the average Democrat, right? He doesn't appear to be someone who's particularly mentally ill. These crazy schizophrenic ravings. You don't see that type of stuff. Now, he is mentally ill in a sense, but, if he's mentally ill, that honestly reflects really poorly on, again, the average Democrat voter. Nonetheless, he wasn't truly a far left communist. Now, you could argue to an extent he is because the average Democrat actually is, and there's not a separation. That's the entire point. But again, if we're to entertain this idea, oh, the Democrat Party isn't completely in touch with their own radical, hardcore, militant Antifa characters out there, then let's entertain the idea. Okay, supposedly this guy is not a quote-unquote far-left communist. He's literally just a normal Democrat. A normal, quote-unquote, sane Democrat tried to kill the president, which is exactly why the hour is later than you think. That's the entire point. And of course, as a result, you had Barack Obama this evening, already having understood what went down. The manifesto is published. We have him trying to argue, although we don't yet have the details about the motives behind last night's shooting at the White House dinner, it's incumbent upon all of us to reject the idea that violence has any place in our democracy, except the issue is, of course, we do have the motive. Not only do we know who this guy was, but I'd like to point out, by the time Obama put out this slop, this absolute garbage, we indeed also received the manifesto, which you can find in full on the internet for yourself. But to summarize it, he starts off by saying, "Hello, everybody," in exclamation marks in an extremely effeminate way, but very typical to how I would expect a 31-year-old potentially rainbow person, teacher from Torrance, California to be talking. So, he goes on to apologize to his family and friends for not telling them about what he was supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. But again, notably, not really written like some crazed lunatic schizophrenic person, but he then goes on to, first of all, confirm he was targeting Trump administration officials. So again, the speculation going in was, while the media was there, was he target the media? He basically says he doesn't want to have to hurt any hotel security or Secret Service or police if possible, But if they get in his way, then that's collateral damage. But he's hoping it doesn't come to that unless, he has to shoot back in self-defense, quote unquote, right? As for the media himself, the media themselves, I should say, he basically states that, well, I'm not there intentionally to hurt the media, but after all, by the way, parroting much of the liberal rhetoric we heard out of Blue Sky and Keith Olbermann and people like that going in, he states that, well, I don't want to hurt the media, but they're also very complicit in showing up to this thing. So, if it happens, it is what it is. But then explicitly does here say, right, he's there primarily to target Trump and his administration officials. And that's who he's there for. That's who he believes to be fair game. You can see it reads hotel security, not targets at all if possible, Secret Service targets only if necessary, but administration officials, not including Mr. Patel for some reason, saying, quote, they are targets prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. So highest ranking person, obviously there being President Trump. And in order to minimize casualties, he's hoping that he doesn't have to do that. But however, he further says, if people are targeted on the basis that most people chose to attend a speech by a, quote, pedophile, rapist, and traitor, and thus are complicit, but I hope it doesn't come to that. So, again, very much reflecting a lot of the rhetoric we heard from other liberals. But his big sticking point here reads the following, much like we've heard from a lot of liberals and even some Democrat politicians, quote, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes, right? So this clearly is in reference to the whole Trump and Epstein thing. Now, once again, as I've said about this from the beginning, you notice how literally everybody who says this, Trump Epstein this, Trump Epstein that, Trump is a pedophile, right? Can't actually point to what they're speaking about. You ask them, okay, where's the evidence that Trump is a pedophile or he raped or whatever? Oh, it's in the files, bro. Okay, what in the files? What page? They didn't read a single file, right? They never read a single page. They can never tell you where that's from, but of course it was just invented as, what else can we say? Pure defamation, pure slander against the president. But let's point out this is not alone. We've heard this several times. The same comes from, for example, Ilhan Omar, who said, the leader of the pedophile protection party is trying to deflect attention from his name being all over the Epstein files, right? So Ilhan said that. Ted Lieu, of course, something very similar.
Donald Trump is in the Epstein files thousands and thousands of times. In those files, there's highly disturbing allegations of Donald Trump raping children, of Donald Trump threatening to kill children.
Yeah, so again, there's no actual evidence for any of that, but you really wonder whether Democrats, having watched that, this big lie is now resulting in actual assassination attempts and political violence, might think to have the cognizance to back off of that talking point, maybe stop using it so much, considering, first of all, it's just slanderous, it's defamatory, but it also leads to very real radicalization in the real world. Of course, I wouldn't exactly hold my breath on that. But you combine that with, again, everything else we know about this guy. He's retweeting Jen Rubin, Trump is Hitler, attending No Kings rallies, all this type of stuff. What the media, frankly, is going to have to say about that. And are they going to basically admit, indeed, this guy was not even a quote-unquote radical leftist by those political standards. He's a generic liberal Democrat. Well, Trump tonight in the interview with 60 Minutes called that out. He asked why all the anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric in this manifesto is not being read out. And the comments, of course, on the shooter having attended these very No Kings protests. So take a listen.
I mentioned that because, again, as his motive, and you brought this up, he had social media accounts that had anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric.
You should read. Why don't you read all the anti-Trump? Why don't you read it? You just did, so why don't you read it?
Well, he had a lot of anti-Christian rhetoric. He was part of a group called the Wide Awakes. He had attended a No Kings protest in California.
No Kings. Yeah.
What did security tell you about what may have been his motives?
The reason you have people like that is you have people doing No Kings. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you.
Well, that's a fantastic point. Why won't the media actually read or go into any real detail about the guy's social media history or the manifesto itself? Well, because it turns out that is more than just anti-Trump rhetoric. People would rapidly associate that to be normal Democrat rhetoric, right? Speaking the same way as your libtarded uncle at Thanksgiving type of like, it's extremely normal. Again, we'll say this. He's not some schizophrenic fringe out there lunatic. He was indeed a very average Democrat who took the whole talking point, hook, line, and sinker that, oh, the president is a pedophile, he's corrupt, he needs to be taken out, he's a fascist, he's literally Hitler, to mean indeed, he's literally Hitler and I need to go take him out, and even apologizing for having done so, basically saying, look, maybe I was not all that crazy of a guy before, but TDS is forcing me to do something and I'm so sorry to my family, right? So maybe just an idea there. Of course, 60 Minutes likewise tries to press Trump on, well, are you actually a pedophile? Are you actually a rapist? Right? Trying to almost to an extent give a little bit of credibility to the ideas in that manifesto. And Trump, of course, is forced to say something that really shouldn't have to be stated, given there's no evidence of it in the Epstein files. How many times do we have to repeat this, right? Try him in court then. Try to see how that goes. Look at past police reports. We've gone over this a million times. No evidence whatsoever Donald Trump was ever up to no good shady stuff with Epstein, okay? All of the lawsuits, the marginal ones where they tried to bring, ultimately failed. The police reports throughout the years always said Epstein and Trump didn't like each other. Trump was the most cooperative guy when it came to taking down Epstein. His administration, let's not forget, took down Epstein, right? But now Trump is being forced to, respond by saying, indeed, I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a rapist. And notice CBS read that crap from some sick person. So they won't read his social media posts where they're talking about where he's talking about how Trump is Hitler, but they do read the Epstein part. And here's what Trump had to say about it.
Called Manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and
these are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me.
Yeah, well, hilarious how that's the only part that the media actually will read. And hilarious to the follow-up question where she's like, well, are you think that he's referring to you? I mean, gee, I don't know. He wrote a manifesto about why he's there to target the Trump administration officials. He showed up to do exactly that. We know what Democrats have said time and time again about Epstein. It completely 100% mirrors that rhetoric. But now liberals are saying, why is he even responding to those allegations? Nobody was calling him a pedophile or a rapist before. Coming from the people who were calling him a bunch of pedophiles and rapists like all the time, right? But it's the same way in which, of course, this is honestly not new behavior because they, of course, celebrated and cheered for more political assassinations. They endorse political violence. And then when someone goes out and does it, they call it fake and staged, right? They just completely, what? We never said that. Leftists are never violent. What are you talking about? That is so implausible and impossible. It is just utterly ridiculous. But nonetheless, that is the big conclusion of today. Again, the more we hear of this guy, the more you realize, yes, indeed, he is the normal no kings Democrat. He really speaks very similar to how you hear a lot of mainline no kings protesters speak, okay? So if you believe that the left-wing radicalization problem is just an issue of Antifa or these revolutionary communists or Palestinian liberation type of groups, please understand, as we told you months ago, the wall of separation between them and the normal Democrat politicians and, of course, the Democrat voters who are marching for no kings and crawling out of the nursing homes and things like that are really not all that separated. And this guy is indeed a prime example. So there you go. That said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this whole situation in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.